Sabrina Hernandez. How are you?
Hello, I'm good. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure. Could you tell us, obviously your name and where are you from?
I'm Sabrina Hernandez. I am from Venezuela and I live in Madrid. I've been living here for 9 years.
What made you move to Madrid?
Well, the situation in Venezuela was unbearable. I could see that there was no way for me to achieve, living on my own and having, I couldn't see a clear future for myself there. So I moved here, and I could also see that my whole family eventually would have to also leave because things there were really getting any better. So yeah, I came first. I felt like it was better if I had, some time living here before they all had to come. And now all my immediate family, almost all of them are here. So yeah,
Very
we're really
nice.
happy. This is our home now. Yeah.
The first time I saw the letterings, is that what you call it,
Mhm.
lettering? I was amazed
Yeah.
because I always see it. And for me, and this is like ignorant me, I guess you assume it's a machine that does that. It's something that because I have never met anybody that have done it. And
Yeah.
seeing you, hopefully I can put some photos of your work in here. And
Nice.
people obviously can follow you on social media and all that, so they can see what you do and how you do it. But when did
Mhm.
this start?
The same thing happened to me. I had no idea what it was. I had no idea that's something that you can actually specialize in until my early 20s. I had studied design. I studied fashion design, actually. I didn't study graphic design as a career. But then when I graduated, and after doing a master's degree in marketing, I started dabbling in graphic design, and the jobs that I found back then were in graphic design. So, I jumped in and started learning. And that's what I've worked for all my professional life. But then when I was 23, just after finishing my master's degree, I ran into an artist, a lettering artist that was from here, from Madrid. And it was wow, this is something that you can actually specialize in. This is something. This is like a field. I had no idea. I knew that obviously you work with typography and you make a logo type, but I had no idea that hand lettering and drawing letters was such a field, like a creative field. And I immediately was obsessed because I don't know why, I've always been drawn to letters my whole life since I was a kid. And I remember when I was 11, a friend of mine brought to school a little booklet it had different fonts, and it was for, typewriters,
Yeah.
and it had all the different, all the different fonts. And I made my dad photocopy it for me. I was obsessed, and I never did anything with it because I didn't really know. And then in my 20s, it was like, whoa, this is a thing. And I went to a workshop with this artist that I discovered. Her name is Marta Velázquez, and she's amazing. And that's how it started. I started in 2015 doing, just a 3-hour workshop of hand lettering. And I became obsessed, and I started practicing on my own. And I think 3 years later is when I started doing my first commissions. And at the time, what was great about starting about it starting as a hobby, because I had another job at that moment, was that I could invest all the time that I wanted without any pressure at all. I wasn't worried about, making ends meet through my art. I was work and money was another matter. And so I was able to explore hand lettering completely free. And then slowly it started becoming more and more as a source of income. And I started to specialize a bit more. I started sharing on Instagram. and I've been dedicated to lettering professionally for 4 years now.
And that's all you do right now?
At first, it was part-time. Right now, yes. I stopped. I had another job. I'm an English teacher as well, and I love teaching. And it was a bittersweet experience to let it go. I let it go recently in November. But I had an opportunity to work with this scrapbooking brand that I had been collaborating with for a while, and she offered me a full-time position, and well, I took it in November, and now, I'm only graphic design and lettering. That's all I do.
Do you work from home?
I do. Yeah. Flexibility is amazing.
And that's something that happened. I mean, now you're doing it full-time. Before COVID, when you were doing it part-time, was always from home, or you would go to somebody's studio and do it there?
It's always been from home. At first I started just taking commissions as a freelancer, and I always work from home some projects are more digital and it just requires, my iPad, my laptop. Others are a bit more crafty, and it's always been from here. And then with this scrapbooking brand, their name is Lora by Lora. Even though the main offices are here in Madrid, in the outskirts of Madrid, the design, we're all scattered around the world design-wise. There's an illustrator in Uruguay. Laura lives in Cádiz, which is in the south of Spain. There's another lettering artist based in Madrid, but we all work from home. So, who would you say
is the biggest client? Like what group is like the one that tend to hire you for like your letterings?
Yes. So far it's been, small businesses have been so far my most, the clients that reach out the most. There are also, just regular people who want to have something custom made, something special for a present or to document a memory. And that's also a steady source of requests. But mostly it's small businesses. And the main thing that they ask for is artwork for either content, social media content, or flyers and advertising, logo types, and brand image is also a big one.
And now, with the artificial intelligence, and and I know this is something that you probably have discussed before.
It's a hot topic, yeah.
So what do you think? Because with art and all that, I mean, there is a big discussion everywhere now about this, like writers right now in the US, there is a writers strike, which affect me. I work in the film industry in Vancouver, and I'm unemployed right now because of that. Like that affects us in here. And a lot of people are talking like if our AI can substitute the work, the writer's work, and there is a lot of discussion about that. And the same happened with other areas like writing in general, paintings and everything. Like in your case, how do you think that can affect what you do today, or if will affect it at all?
Definitely, it will affect it. That will definitely. It's going to be a big revolution if it isn't already happening. I feel like the main effect it will have is that, for example, in my case, small businesses, right? There's a small business. Let's imagine an ice cream parlor, right? And they need a lettering design for their menu, or their this blackboard thingies that they put outside so that people are interested.
Sandwich board, yeah.
Exactly, yeah. that, even though when you think about it, it's something that it might be, how do you say that? It's like temporary, you know, it's not something that's going to be part of your brand design for a long, long time. Even though it's a temporary thing that you need, it does require a lot of time to make.
Mm-hmm.
So it is expensive. It has, you know, it's something that not every small business can afford. And so this small business can now request from an AI, hey, here's my menu. I want something like this, and I get the design, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's definitely something that perhaps I won't get that many requests for that kind of thing, or I will have to lower my prices, which is not really sustainable in the long run, because it's like a race to the bottom, you know?
Yeah.
But I also feel like more interesting, I can also use it as a tool. And instead of, I can look at it as a threat, right? And feel like, well, this small business is going to go the AI route and is not going to contact me at all. But that's not really likely, because that AI, that small business, that ice cream parlor that we're talking about, maybe is owned by a 60-year-old person who's not really, you know, into technology, or doesn't really have any idea, or wants something more specialized. AI right now is not perfect. It's gonna be better. Really soon, but well. And so I can start using it as a tool, and instead of spending, imagine 10 hours doing the blackboard, I can have 4 sketches in 5 minutes, and then go from there, and have my time, you know, the time that I dedicate to it, like extremely condensed. And that will allow me to perhaps have more clients, or lower the prices a little bit. So yeah, I guess in the design and illustration field, well, in any field, now that I think about it, the difference will be the people that are using AI as a tool and the people that are not. And I think those are the ones that are going to be more threatened by this whole revolution. The ones that are resisting change, which I'm afraid is most of us, because we're not really used to, you know, new, like, in general, I think as the human race is not, doesn't like change that much.
Yeah, and I think it's a good challenge, because what you were saying, you will have to adapt and start looking for ways of make yourself more noticeable among all the other people doing the same thing. And I have the same, like I have one of my cousins, he lives in Madrid as well. And he talks a lot about AI, and he's really passionate about it, and he's always showing me like how this is the new thing, and which I believe. And like slowly I have got to a point where I understand the value of it. And and I think it's one of those things. It's like when I came to Canada from Cuba, like Facebook, I remember I couldn't even check Facebook in Cuba because there was no internet. So Facebook was new for me. And then I got into Canada and I started using it. And then at some point I got tired of it and I tried to go away from it. And I I deleted my accounts, and I self-published one book first. And there was like, I was just like telling people I didn't want to use Facebook. I wasn't like, or Instagram or anything, because I left that. And I realized, like, if you don't use those tools that are available to most of us, you have like a disadvantage. Like,
totally.
Now with the podcast, like one of the first things, like one of my friends in Cuba, he told me like, well, you need to open your Instagram, you need to do this, and you need to start using it. Because if not, was like, for me, I was resistant, and still today I'm trying. Like, I see other people, like I go on Instagram every day, and I see that people post like 10 posts on the same day, 10 stories, or like they are so active, and I cannot do that. Like, I don't feel comfortable doing that. I don't feel like every second just telling what I'm doing. But having that said, now I'm just like promoting my podcast, like, because it's a new project and I want to have listeners and I want to reach as many people as possible. And that's the best tool available to me right now. Just
definitely
do it that way. And
but I completely relate. It's a struggle to be active and to share. Yeah, it's part of the job, because otherwise it's like you don't exist. And right now, since everyone is so reachable, and you're not just competing with people from your neighborhood, you have a massive pool of competitors, basically. So you really have to stand out somehow. But it's a struggle. For me, I consider myself an introvert. I'm a little bit shy. I find it really. I'm also. I mean, I second guess everything I do. I'm really indecisive, and so it's hard for me to post because of that, because I'm second guessing everything, and I want things to be, have a certain look, and that takes a lot of time as well. It's really time consuming. What people don't know when they see well curated social media accounts is how long it takes and how difficult it is.
Yeah,
I feel like we artists want to be passionate about everything we do, but there are parts that we won't like, and it's part of the job, and you just have to get it done. So I feel like that social media in general and social media presence in general is that, for me at least. I'm sure there are people who love it, but for me, it's a task. It's a chore.
Like in that, like what you were saying, like I had a conversation with like a graphic designer the other day, Jaimel, and he was saying that, like, as an artist, you also have to see it as a business. Like when you're an artist, you have to see your craft as a business, and you have to take care of it.
One thing I struggled a lot with as well was there came a point where I felt like I was sharing like a catalog of my work. It was like I didn't feel like there was any purpose behind it. I was just sharing because I wanted to meet the minimum average that you need to share so that you can grow an audience, and it felt empty. And when I was feeling like that, and then I noticed that I started modifying what I did, what I was making, what I was working on, so that I would share, based on how it was going to be perceived. And it started taking the joy out of what I was doing, And one thing is work, because now that I work full time with hand lettering and graphic design, that part didn't actually suffer, because I don't share a lot about work, because I need to wait for, manufacturing and actually the brand, like presenting the work to everyone. But it did affect my hobby. It affected the passion that I have for what I do. So I had to stop. My solution was stopping, and I've been away from this kind of constant social media posting for a long time now, for at least, I think, a year and a half, because I just became overwhelmed by the whole thing. I'm still trying to find a way to find purpose in it. Again, that's something that I feel that makes a difference, basically, right? Since I like teaching, I think I might go that way and start, posting a little bit more about the how to, and perhaps from the point of view of like, this is gonna help you somehow. Maybe that's the way to go.
Do you have like a course that you recorded online?
I do. Like... I have a couple.
Okay, this is the
Couple,
moment.
yes. Yeah, there's one. The first one, it's called Letter and Scrap, because I do scrapbooking. That's also a big hobby of mine. And this brand that I work with, we are a scrapbooking supplies brand. So what we design collections, scrapbooking collections. And when I first came up with this course, it is about how to document your memories using both hand lettering, and so that you can document the big phrases, the words that you get told to, or that you use as a mantra, for example. And also using scrapbooking to document your memories with photographs and how to join them and work with them together. And yeah, that was amazing. I love that course. It's really, I feel like it's the best thing that I've done so far, teaching wise, professionally, because it's really complete. I don't know if that's the proper term to use. You know, it's like you really get a strong base for both lettering and scrapbooking after finishing it. And then there's another one which is called iPad lettering, and it's basically the name.
Okay.
iPad lettering, yeah. It's about doing hand lettering on the iPad, and not just the logistics of it, like how to use the iPad for that, but also there are like basic graphic design concepts that we learned there, and that we can also apply to, well, scrapbooking or making a sign for the wall, whatever you want to.
And now, are these in Spanish, in English, or both? Or you can have the options to. They're in Spanish.
Yeah, they're both in Spanish.
Is there like a subtitles available?
Natively inside the website where it's at, which is called enmicraftroom.com. There isn't an option. There isn't a subtitles option. I guess they're on Vimeo, right? I mean, you watch the videos on the website, but they're hosted on Vimeo, and I don't know if there's like an automatic closed captions option there. I would have to check, but it's not a translation that I have supervised. That's for sure.
If you go today, where do you have to go in order to take the course?
You just have to go to the website. It's called enmicraftroom.com. So ENMI craftroom.com. And there you can find any courses. They're there. Letter and scrap and iPad lettering.
Are you planning to continue with this, like creating more courses, or maybe even teach live, like with a live audience, like with students? Is that something that you're planning to do? Yeah.
Yeah, it's definitely. I'm coming to a point where I need to think about what to do. You know, in the mid and long term, because so far I'm really happy at my job and I really love what I'm doing. But I know that eventually I want something else. I want something, I want something that's my own. And I think teaching is the way to go because I love it. I love the feeling of, the contact with students. I love it when I get to, have someone who doesn't have any idea of how to do a little bit of calligraphy or lettering. And at the end of a 3 or 4 hour course, you can see that they can actually, do something with intention, and that that communicates a message. That's, for me, that feeling is amazing. I have done a couple live lettering, face-to-face lettering workshops, and they've been great. And I'd love to do more, definitely. As for online, so far I don't have anything in mind. I don't rule it out because I love it as well. I really like it. It's less. It's more lonely, perhaps, you're talking to yourself most of the time, and the comment section then, and when people get it, it's really rewarding, but it's not the same as life,
When you see it done in front of you, that adds a value that for many people is important. For me, for sure, it's very important. Like, knowing that somebody took the time and did it
and handcrafted it. Yes.
Yeah,
that's really nice. I feel like when you're doing something artistry. I don't know, artsy. Um, it's not really about the result. It's about the process and enjoying the process.
Yeah.
And people can really see the difference. Like when you enjoy the process or when they actually see you working, it becomes like a ritual. It becomes like when you're watching something relaxing, that you get hooked just by looking at the ink on the page,
Yeah.
or by looking at a steady hand that makes it seem like it's really easy, and then you try it and you see that it's not. It's like hypnotizing. So yeah, with AI, that is lost, obviously, because you only see the result 2 seconds after you asked for what you needed.
Yeah.
So there's a big difference there. I feel like we can exploit that.
I see it on like my friends that are musicians and painters,
Uh-huh.
and it's what you said. Like me writing, like when I'm writing a script or a book, is that process where when you're working and finally you find that thing that like it had you kind of like yeah, like when I'm writing and I'm trying to figure out how to solve something like with a
Yeah.
character or something like that, and the moment I find it, I remember when I was writing the last script that I wrote, like the first draft of the latest script I did,
Mm-hmm.
and the moment I figured out the ending, when I started writing, I didn't know what the ending would be, and when in my head when I was like, oh, that would be the ending, and then it became exciting, and then I couldn't wait. I was just writing, and I was just like, I want to go to the ending because I think it's very nice, and that motivated me. That was like, I have to do it, and I don't think like if you get those answers by asking a machine, like, yeah, what would be a nice ending for this, and then just give you options, and she's like, oh, this one. I don't think that
Mm-hmm.
that will spark, like that sparks that you feel like when it's just like, oh, I did it. And the same with, like, you see it with musicians and everything when they are working and they are struggling to get to a sound or like a something, and then they just figure it out. And then after that, it becomes easier, and then they practice and practice. But that first moment, I don't think you will get it if somebody gives you the answer.
Yeah, I feel like it's definitely a different approach. It's like finding a new strategy, a new way of looking at it, and finding the spark some other way.
Yeah,
Because like doing what we do, which takes a lot of time and energy, and um, you know having your environment just right so that the creative juices start flowing, and you need the spark, you need that moment, you need that magic, that it when it suddenly fits, and you're so proud of what you're making that you keep going, that you suddenly have a lot more energy to keep going. So I feel like we need to find something like that working with AI as a tool,
yeah.
which might be tricky, but I guess we don't have that much of a choice,
I mean,
unfortunately.
it's something that it will be discovered. Like at some point, we will. I
Hmm.
guess this is not something that will happen like radically. Like it will be slowly happening, and people will start adjusting to it. Like so, in 5 years, if we have, or in 2 years, or maybe in 2 months, who knows? We have the same conversation, and maybe it's completely different. Maybe it would be something different. But I still believe that I have a friend. He's a writer as well. And one
Hmm.
time he told me, he was like so excited. Oh, have you seen this? And he started talking about one of those apps like the Chat GPT. And he said like, yeah,
Yes.
we can write a short film. Why don't we just let's make a short film.
Hmm.
And I have made like 3 or 4 short films so far. And
Hmm.
I mean, the pleasure I feel when I finish a script, or when I get to a point, and then when somebody tells me 3 years after I made it, somebody comes to me and says like, "Hey, I just saw your short film for 30 Maria, and that was really lovely." And they start giving you feedback of something that you wrote, you created many years ago. That has not equivalent. Like, I mean, like, I don't think, because when you do something, when you struggle to do something, and as an artist, you struggle, like, in many ways, like
All the time.
trying to get it done. And a lot of times, like, even without the support of people, because many people in your family, in like your group of friends, like, a lot of time they don't understand why you have to do that. Why you have to do it. Like, somebody told me recently, like, yeah, if you stop making short films, you might own a house. Like, and I was like, yeah, but
thank you.
I have to. I explained it to my cousin Mauricio as well. One day, he's like, yeah, but I have to do it. I don't see myself not doing it. I don't see myself kind of like, okay, well, maybe in 20 years I can make short films when I have my life figured out. Like, no, it's something that is out of my hands in a way. I mean, it's in my hands, but like, I choose to do it because it makes me so happy. Just the other day, my wife and her sister, they were taking some photos here and some videos. And I got involved, and I was like, just doing that, it makes me happy. To me, getting involved in filming something, that's something that I love and I look for. So,
and it's also about finding happiness in the present. You know, it's if this is what's making you, I mean, what's allowing you to enjoy into your present right now, then why not? You know, maybe a house won't do the same for you.
What would you say has been your biggest struggle as an artist that you have faced?
Being constant. That's definitely, hands down, being constant was, if I'm not really passionate about something, as in passionate in the sense of I can't keep my hands to myself, you know, it's like I need to, if I'm talking to you, I might be doodling, right? If that doesn't happen, I struggle a lot with being constant. And even though what I do is perhaps 70% illustration, which is amazing. You know, I'm really lucky to have a job where I can dedicate 70% of the time to illustrating. There's another 30% that's really important. And that's the part that I struggle with the most, which is, well, as we were talking, you know, having a social media presence, posting, building a personal brand, and then the strategy behind the design work. Because if you jump in straight to the sketch, you're not really doing effective work. You're not doing, you're not optimizing your time, and you're not making things easier for yourself for the future, which doesn't allow you to grow. So that has definitely been my weakest link so far. And I feel like also dedicating time to things that I am not naturally good at. I get really passionate about things that I have, you know, that I feel like come easy to me. And I jump straight in because I can see results fairly quickly. But then there are other skills that are really important as well, that I don't necessarily see results quickly. I feel like they're really hard, and I find it really hard to keep going, you know, and keep learning, even though I know it's valuable and I need to continue. So I think discipline might also be another one. Yeah. How about you? What's your hardest struggle?
My biggest, I would say it's like having too many projects that haven't materialized yet, because I have stories that I want to tell, It's just like I'm trying to focus one at a time, and a lot of it's a battle that you have to choose. Okay, now is the
Yeah.
time for this one, and that happened with the books. Like, I mean, every project I have done so far, it takes times, and every project has their own complexities. Like, for example, my that short film 430 Maria, I wrote it in Vancouver, but I will shoot it in Cuba. So I
Yeah.
was communicating with a producer in Cuba, and at the time there was like people to get connected to the internet in Cuba, they would have to go to a park,
Yeah.
and like because there was no internet everywhere, it was like some areas in the city that had internet, and many times we were in the middle of a meeting just chatting WhatsApp, something that is very easy. I mean, I can chat with you and we can discuss, I can call you, we can video call, like easy. With Cuba at that time, 2018, it was very difficult. So producing a short film in another country, having to travel, and like that has a lot of like complexity,
Yeah.
and making those kind of decisions, like I'm gonna make this project, is a big decision, because once I commit to it, I will do it. And now I
Yes.
have a family, so I will say my biggest um, challenge is to choose wisely what project I'm going to um, I'm going
To start.
to start. Yeah, thank you. Because once I committed, I'm gonna do it, and that happened with the podcast. Like I was like, I mean, I finished writing the script, like a feature film, on February 1st, the first draft. So I wanted to give it like a couple of months to kind of like to cool down, and then I will go back to it with the feedback I got from friends and family to start writing the second draft. And that I put it aside, because then it was like, okay, let's make the podcast. And now I'm in the podcast, and I choose the podcast because I can do it from my office, which is not far from here, from where I live, or I can do it like now from home. So it doesn't affect my family life, because also I have a full-time job in the film industry, which it takes like 12 hours of my day. So I start at 7 a.m. and I finish at 7 p.m. So that's that's my answer. To choose wisely what project I'm making, because I mean, when my daughter was 3 months old, I make another short film, Solitude, and that was tough, because all that we discussed before with no sleeping and all that, I was working at home. I was working on that TV show at the time, and then I will come home and I will have meetings. I will make phone calls. I will be writing. I will be doing all those things while my wife was with my daughter. And eventually, she told me, she said, like, yeah, I understand. My wife, as I have said 3 times, my wife is an artist. She understands
Yeah.
the process. She
Exactly.
understands the commitment to a project. She understands that. And that's what she said. Like, I understand you had to do it. I understand. It's just when you choose to do it. Like, because at that
Right.
time, and I think as an artist, and I don't know, I would like to hear your opinion, but I think as an artist,
Yeah.
a lot of times you are selfish in a way that, like, I mean, I know this is important. It doesn't matter what anybody else think. It doesn't matter if, it doesn't matter. Like, I mean,
Yeah.
this project, this book, this short film, this movie, this, whatever it is, it matters. This is important. The world needs, like, I think it's an ego thing as well. Like, the world needs to have this piece
Yes.
out there. And then in that, I think that's like a lot of relationships get affected by that as well, because when you're constantly working on something, and you are maybe not paying enough attention to the people close to you, that will affect it for sure. So what do you think about
Totally.
that?
Yes. Yeah, I feel like it's we really have to choose wisely our partners, and we really have to show ourselves as we are as well,
Yeah.
when we're starting relationships, because it's, if you're not on the same page, or if you're with someone that just doesn't understand and doesn't have the flexibility to work around you as well, and I mean, we have to be flexible as well. It's not just
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
people around us. But I feel like that's the key, because otherwise it's really difficult to, I mean, sometimes it's like an inspiration streak, and you spend 7 hours and you haven't even really noticed that you haven't eaten anything, and
Yeah.
you're there. And that feeling is amazing. I feel like that's the best feeling I can get when I'm working. When I'm so engrossed with what I'm doing that I forget the world. That's the best thing that can happen. And if you have demands around that, oof, it's hard. It's hard. I guess it's a matter of balance, of having to adapt. Perhaps right now that my life is going to change and I'm going to have a baby, it's not going to be 7 hours. It's going to be 3, or maybe no hours,
20
maybe
minutes.
a couple minutes.
20
Exactly.
minutes.
Let's see.
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
something that brings like I mean, with the babies they will bring whatever they are a person. They will tell you. It's not like, oh yeah, you cannot predict like if they're going to sleep a lot, if they're going to be like, I mean, it will
Exactly.
surprise you, and that's nice. That's part of it.
Exactly.
What you were saying about
Yeah.
not eating, I remember whenever I'm like filming something, I can
Mm-hmm.
be like that, hours standing, working, and most of the time I'm writing, producing, directing, editing, like part of like the editing process as well. So I'm involved in every process, and it's hard to describe for somebody that haven't done something with that
Mm-hmm.
passion. I enjoy it so much. I remember one time we filmed, me and my friend Javier, a
Mm-hmm.
music video, a music video. And I remember I went home at the time, like where I used to live. I used to have like a desk that was like a standing desk. So I was standing
Uh-huh.
in front of the desk. And I think I started editing at 7 a.m., 7 p.m., sorry, 7 p.m. And
Mm-hmm.
I started editing. I was standing in front of the computer, and I didn't go to the bathroom. I didn't drink water. I didn't do anything. I was just working. And at 4 a.m., I wasn't aware of the time. My partner at the
Oof.
time, she told me at 4 a.m., it's like, hey, you need to sleep because I was working the next day at 7 a.m. So I have to wake up at 6 a.m. So I have like, but for me, it's something like you don't, yeah, you are so in the moment, and editing or writing, it has that thing that is just
Mm-hmm.
like, once you go to a rhythm, you don't want to stop because you are just like, no, but like I want to get to this point, what I was telling you about finding the ending for my
The
film.
ending.
Once I know
Yes.
I'm going here, I'm here, I'm like 30 pages away, but I'm just like, "Ah, but I want to
I
see it.
can't
I
wait.
want to get, I
Exactly.
cannot wait until tomorrow or next week to see. And obviously you have to stop. Uh, but
Mm.
is that feeling, being present in the moment. I haven't found anything
Mm-hmm.
else like that, like work wise. Like,
I remember once my dad, I wasn't dedicated to art by then. I don't think I was even studying design at that moment. And I was just drawing. And I remember I was drawing a minion because I was obsessed with the minions back then. I loved the animation. I felt like they were genius, how they made you laugh without even,
yeah,
saying anything. And it was a really cool drawing. I don't know, with coloring pencils. I loved making it. It took me hours and hours, and I finished. And I showed my dad, like, oh, look what I made, and he was like, oh, y I was gonna speak Spanish, obviously. Like, and what are you gonna do with this? What is this for? Like, what purpose does this have? And I was like, no purpose. I don't know. Like, this is nothing. And then I started thinking about it. And imagine, this is something that I remember. This happened 15 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
But it stuck to my, in my memory. And that's when I noticed that the thing that we have been talking all along, which is it's more about the process and not really about the result and about the purpose of it or how it's going to change the world or not. It's just, this is something that I enjoy, that I dedicate my time, that it looks nice, that it makes me laugh, that it brings a memory, that whatever, it's worth it for me. It's worth it,
Yeah, and now exists.
You were talking about how you believe in the purpose of your work, right? When you were saying that sometimes artists, we are a little bit selfish because we know that what we're doing matters for us or for anyone or for the world, whatever. And we have to dedicate time to it. Haven't you struggled, though, sometimes with an own little voice asking you, is this really, like, does this really matter? Like, or are you really going to dedicate hours to this project when it perhaps keeps you away from your adult responsibilities or anything that you are required to do? Because that's something that I've struggled with.
For me, there are two categories. Like when I'm working for somebody else, when I'm editing somebody's video, or when I haven't been hired to write for anybody else, but when, like, as an editor, when I have edit for somebody else, it's difficult because at first you are excited, but then it's just like you don't feel the passion of, I don't feel the same way when I'm working on my project, because what happened is when I'm working on my projects, I have been involved since the very beginning. When I'm working for somebody else, that's their passion and they are all excited and they want to see it, but I don't feel that necessarily. When I'm feeling it, I can be hours without eating, going to the bathroom. I can work in the sun. I can work in the rain. I don't care because there is something more important.
Right.
And when I'm working for hire, it's just like a money. It's like, okay, what do I need to do? I don't know.
Exactly. Yeah.
Do you feel that way like, when you work for somebody else?
Yes, definitely. Definitely. Because when I'm doing something for the thing is, I struggle with the most when what I'm doing is strictly for myself. When it's hobby and it's for myself. For example, I enjoy making photo albums. Sorry. And they take up a lot of time because they're not like a photo album that you assemble online and then you print it. No, it's printing the photos and assembling the whole thing and doing the bookbinding. I enjoy it a lot, but it takes a crazy amount of hours. And sometimes I don't have that time. And when I dedicate time to that, then I have to take it away from something else. So that's my biggest struggle as to my own insecurity, as I was what I was telling you about, like, oof, is this really necessary? Right? Like, is this really something that my niece and nephew are going to see in 20 years time and they're going to care about? Or is it just this for me? And then there's the whole question of would it be less valuable if it's just for me? But that's another thing. That's another conversation. But when I'm doing this for someone else, and I know that someone is going to find value in that and is going to feel special, that excitement is not equaled by anything else, And it's usually when I do things for people that I care about. So in this case, it's much more spontaneous. The idea itself starts to form on its own because it follows its own guidelines. The work that I do with Laura in Lora by Lora, I have been really lucky because I enjoy the product so much, the final result. I'm designing the products that I use for my hobby, you know?
Mm-hmm.
And when that box gets home and I open it and I see all the things and I see the stamps that are finished with the artwork that I worked on 3 months before, that feeling is so great that, and when I'm actually working and documenting memories with the supplies that I designed, it's such a rewarding feeling that I do find pleasure in it. Even if I'm making something, because sometimes I don't design it. Sometimes she tells me very specific guidelines that I just follow and execute. So that execution is enjoyable because I believe in what we do, because I like the result, and we're aligned in that way. So I'm really lucky because she's like a perfect client, because we're aligned.
Yeah.
In our purpose and in what we want to show the world and what we want to create. But with other clients, when I used to work freelance and someone would ask me a logo type that I didn't believe in, with a color palette that was hard to work with, that's different. You need more breaks, definitely more breaks.
Do you think that now your friends and family expect one of your work on their birthday or Mother's Day? Like, do you think that's something that people are kind of like waiting for?
Yeah, I don't think they do, because
No?
I haven't been I haven't been as constant with that as I'm sure I would love to, because at the end of the day, it does take a lot of time. So sometimes I have ideas that I just can't execute. My sister, my older sister, has been asking me for a photo album for forever. But my niece and nephew, I mean, I love them to death. I have a million pictures, and her aunt from their dad's side, it's a photographer, like the best photographer I know. And so they have awesome pictures, and I'm always paralyzed when I start doing something for them, because it's like, how am I gonna convey all the love and all the, the importance of these moments in a project? So I've never imagined they're going to be 10 and 8 this year, and I've never done a full photo album for them. I'm just in the process of making one right now. I'm in the middle of it, and I'm really excited. So she's definitely expecting it. She's been asking that of me for years. But not at every twist and turn. No, not every birthday. No.
It's not like you make
they do
a
appreciate
card.
it, but
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, no, because I will imagine you, knowing what you know, giving like, instead of buying a car from the supermarket to somebody for their birthday, I will imagine you making one yourself. But again, that's assuming. It's like, I have like a good friend that he's like a classical guitarist. He gives concerts. He has traveled the world giving concerts. And now that I have a guitar, he doesn't live in Canada anymore, but like, when he came to my house, I was like, I have a guitar. Do you want to play something? Because it's kind of like, you kind of like expect that. And I heard that from a comedian as well. That is like, every time he goes to a party and they say like, oh yeah, you don't have, no, just be you, just enjoy, don't have. And then at some point somebody's like, okay, are you making some jokes here now or what? Like, because people expect that. That's why I ask you. So what's your Instagram or whatever social media you use, if you want to say it?
I only use Instagram. I use my username is Sabrina H Martin. Martin is my second last name, so Sabrina H Martin. That's it on Instagram. And I guess you'll see it's all really, lettering, papers, photos. That's basically it. Thank you so much for having me. It's been really, really fun and nurturing, actually. Yeah. We've learned from each other and each other's processes here. So that's nice.
Yeah, I felt like when I started this podcast, it's weird because I have been working, I mean, as a filmmaker, and I'm always behind. Like, I'm never in front of the camera. I remember with the short film for 30 Maria, they asked me from a festival to give, so because I wasn't able to attend to the festival, they asked me to send a video so they can play it before the film. And it felt so weird, just like talking to a phone. It's like, hey, thank you for watching my film. I hope you enjoy it and all that.
Oh, yeah.
And that's how I started with the podcast. I mean, it's still at the beginning. I'm a little nervous, like, what? But now, I guess once you start once you jump into the conversation, I relax, like, and I guess that's again enjoying the process without like expectations, like thinking of the outcome. It's more like being present, enjoying the conversation, and learn, because that's one of the reasons why I started this, just to talk to people that inspire me and hopefully can inspire other people, like when they listen to this and they watch the video on YouTube. So thank you very much for being here.
Thank you.
I